Hello and welcome. Come on in. Welcome to my home. Make yourself comfortable. I'm Jessica Allen. If we are meeting for the first time, thanks so much for being here. If you're not here for the first time, you already know, but if you are, I want to encourage you to take a moment and resource yourself. So, what I mean by that is just get yourself some delicious things. I have some cacao, setting it down lightly so it doesn't make a bunch of noise on the mic. I've got some really yummy lip balm, and I have some rose essential oil. And I encourage you to bring these things in because they support your senses and they support you in relaxing, being able to be present, to receive information, to feel good. And yes, we're going to be talking about boundaries today, but we're also going to be talking about rose and really talking about being delicious and making boundaries delicious and making your life delicious and all of this. I've got some notes I'm going to be peeking at. I also have some notes on my computer that I'll be peeking at. I'm not performing for you. Just want to hang out and share some information that has transformed my life when it comes to setting boundaries and the lens that I live my life through, and when it comes to boundaries, and really specifically how to work with Rose as an ally for boundaries, and how Rose actually brought me into this understanding of boundaries. So I'm gonna be sharing all of this. Before I dive in, before we dive in, if you want to pause this and just get up and get yourself some yummy things, that would be great, right? You want to go get yourself some tea, some yummy smells, some oils, anything at all that just like makes your creature body feel yummy and delicious, or some scents or anything that just like makes you feel good. Go ahead and pause this now so that you can, resource yourself, bring things in that's going to make you feel good. Okay, cool. So I want to start off by saying that boundaries is just one of my favorite things to talk about. And, I started really consciously exploring boundary work and my own boundaries about a little over a decade ago. I was a full-time yoga teacher in Brooklyn, and I had huge classes and I shared a lot. And so I definitely exposed a lot of vulnerable pieces of me or just pieces of me. And so I do feel that there was like a pretty strong resonance between myself and my students. And I was running into a lot of uncomfortable conversations where I would have quite a few people come up to me at the end of class and invite me for coffee and invite me to hang out and invite me to these things. And I was having this internal experience of, oh God, I don't want to do any of this. And I feel so bad saying no. And the way that it felt for me, it was just awful, right? Like my chest would contract, my throat would start to close up. I would say, oh yeah, maybe like not today, another time. But I could never just say no. It was like something that I would push off and leave open ended so that I would avoid saying no. Right? And if you're here, you probably know what I'm talking about is like you avoid actually just being like, no. And I was still in my late 20s at the time and had been a people pleaser. Yeah, my whole life. I've got some other podcast content story that I will share below if you want to listen to more of that particular piece of my life. And so I didn't really like, I didn't even understand, right? Like for most of my life, I had no idea of what a boundary even was. Like I didn't know where I totally ended and where someone else began. And I started teaching yoga full time when I was 26. And at that time, it was like I was a beginner, right? So I couldn't even use the word student. I couldn't say client, right? Like I still felt just like a peer. And that also was really confusing for me. So I treated everybody like they were my friends and they treated me like friends, but I couldn't have all these friends and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to navigate that. And I'm sharing this because I had had a lifetime of people pleasing family members, friendships, boyfriends, and really not understanding that I was even doing that because it was just in a in like a relationship, right? Like it just was I knew things were funky. I could see patterns, especially as I started doing a lot of healing work, but I still couldn't like put my finger on it. It wasn't until I was teaching yoga and had people coming up to me in this context where there was a sense of separation, right? These weren't friends that I chose. They were people who were paying to come receive practice from me. Not until that came in was I like, oh my God, I need to learn about boundaries. I need to learn how to say no. So when I first came into boundaries, I was like, this feels awful. This is awful. This feels yucky. This feels bad. All I can think about is how scary it is to say no and like how I'm going to hurt the other person, how I don't even know how to communicate. My body feels awful. All I can think about is what I don't want. All I can think about is what I don't want. And yet I had to figure something out. So I started just kind of like playing around with that at that point in my life. Okay, what are different things that I can say? Like, oh, I don't have time for that. I don't have space for that. Right. But still, like you can even hear my voice now is like, ooh, that feels like, ooh, it feels like a little uncertain and icky. And also this classic, like, I'm gonna say it nice. I'm gonna tell you no, but I'm gonna say it nice. So you don't hate me. Please keep coming to my classes. Like this thing. So anyway, I'm just sharing this because this is the beginning of my story. And the first couple years that I was really focused on, I understood that I needed boundaries in my life. It just felt bad for me. I was navigating it, but I didn't have any really good, strong things that made me feel empowered in the choices that I needed to make and things that made me feel good. So I'm specifically talking about boundaries with Rose because when I first started working with Rose, it was maybe 8 years ago or something like this. And I didn't start working with Rose because I wanted a boundary teacher. And we're going to get more into plant studentship later on, if that's new for you. Should have said that in the beginning. I work with plant medicine and specifically plant studentship, plant spirit allyship, and we're going to talk about Rose and plant spirit allyship and specifically when it comes to boundaries and feeling good. Okay, so as I was saying several years ago, I I started working with Rose in baths, in rose baths and plant baths. And only started working with Rose because the property I was living at the time had rose bushes everywhere. And they were the kind of roses that they would blossom and they would die and they would blossom and they would die. And just all summer, it's just this like abundant of roses. And so I was able to collect these wild roses and make baths with them. I mean, just so beautiful. And as I was working with plant baths, with these rose baths, I started to receive these boundary teachings in my life, but from a totally different lens. And this is really what I am going to be sharing with you today is how to make boundaries feel really good. And the teachings that Rose gave me around boundaries, how it changed the entire foundation of how I approached not only boundaries, but like myself and my life. And hopefully you'll be able to walk away with a new perspective in a way that you can start navigating your boundaries in a way that, like I said, feels good. I want you to feel good. I want you to, all that stuff that I shared about like, oh, it's so awful. It's so scary. It's so this. Like, I got something else for you that's going to change the game. So, this is what we're going to cover officially. What the heck are boundaries? That's going to be the first thing I'm going to talk about a little bit. Then we're going to talk about boundaries and sensuality, boundaries and feeling yummy and good. We're going to talk about that sacred. No, because indeed it is sacred. I'm going to dive into the nature of Rose, how Rose became this teacher for me, like the essence of Rose, what she's carrying and how this information came forward. and also rose as a boundary ally, as a teacher, as a friend to support you in your boundary journey. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in to this conversation. Okay, so let's first, excuse me, talk about boundaries. Like, what the heck is a boundary? So, really, at its core, like just the most simple form, a boundary is an expression of your desires and your limits, your capacity. I was talking about boundaries the other day and actually said that, going to sleep is a boundary. Like, you have to say, I have to stop being awake right now so I can replenish myself so that I can wake up tomorrow and continue to be awake and do things. I like to neutralize things, right? So it's like, that's it. Like, I have met my capacity for doing, for being awake today. I need to resource and replenish myself so that I can keep going. So that's a limit, right? You have a limit, you have a limited amount of energy that you can work with on any given day. So that's one aspect of what a boundary is, just very clearly what you have the capacity for, a need. Then you have desires. And desires are the things that you want, of course, right? They're the things that you want to do. And so the boundary is an expression of that desire. So here's an example, right? If I know, let's just use this for a moment. I want to be recording this workshop for you right now. I want to be hanging out talking about boundaries. It's something I want. So if someone had reached out to me this morning, and this was on my plate for today, and they had said, hey, you want to go to the lake and hang out? But I knew that I wanted to do this today, I would say no, because I'm working on sharing this awesome stuff about boundaries. Right? That's so the boundary is actually just me expressing the no, like I can't do that thing because I want to do this other thing that we're hanging out doing now. So just that's it. You've got your needs, you've got your wants, you've got your capacity and your limits, and the boundaries are the space that you meet them and hopefully communicate them. Okay, next point. Your boundaries are the physical barrier between you and another person. Our skin is a boundary. We have our internal world, and then there's an external world. And our body is the barrier or the boundary between those two things. I have my body, you have your body, and we have physical barriers between you and I so that we are physically in a three-dimensional existence separate, right? We are different bodies. There's a boundary there, right? We are not one merged thing on a physical level, okay? This is important to know, right? Because I do think for many people, and myself included, just because I'm not paying attention consciously, is like, yeah, where do I end and another person begins? Which is more like, what do I actually want and what am I doing for another person? Where to say like, oh, I'm a different person than you. This is my body and you have your body and we are different. Even just doing that is like, okay, that means I have different wants, needs, desires. I can make different choices than you, right? You have different thoughts. You have different things that you want to do with your life. You have different needs and I have different ones. This is a different body. This is a different house. And so we can just say like, okay, I am actually separate from you by acknowledging our physical body in that way. Okay, next point on boundaries I have here is that they're the expression. Boundaries need to be expressed in some way, shape, or form. They have to be embodied. They have to be communicated when other people are involved, right? Their decision. So they're expressions and containers that we build around ourselves to protect our time, our energy, and our health, our well-being. So you need to know how much time you need to exist on your own, to do your work for the day, to have self-care, to have your practices, right? Whatever it is, your time, like and it's your responsibility to know how much of that you actually need at any given moment in time. And then you create that in your life. The creation of that is a boundary, right? Because nobody else is going to come in while you are doing that if you're very clear on it. Now, if you share space with someone, right, like my partner and I live together, and often we're sharing space together, even when I'm doing things like this. If he's just like walking, can you imagine he's just like walking in right now and asking me questions? That would be very poor boundaries. He's entering my space when I have set a container for myself to do this, to hang out with you and share this information, okay? Your energy. So I have a certain amount of capacity to share, to talk, to teach, to hang out with friends, to rub my partner's shoulders, to give, right? To listen, to talk to, to listen to people in my life. I have a certain amount of energy that I also need to do my practices, take care of me. So I have to know that for myself. What is the capacity of my energy? How much energy do I have on any given day? Because there it's going to change, right? Your energy changes day to day, especially if you're a woman. We have this delicious, month-long cycle of energetic waves. And then how do you tend to that and communicate the spaces where you're like, okay, that's the end of my energy for the day and I got to go to sleep. I got to take a bath. I got to listen to music by myself, right? And then you pull back and reclaim your time. And of course, your well-being and your health. And this can go so deep, right? Which we're not going to, it goes, everything I'm talking about already is well-being and health. And again, this is all your responsibility to know for yourself how you like to feed yourself, what kind of exercise you need on a daily basis, what kind of space you need, time, where your energy is at, how much rest you need, how much movement you need, how much interaction you need with other humans for vitality, if you're very extroverted, you need like a lot of social engagement to make you feel really good and healthy. If you're introverted, you need less, right? But the point is you need to know yourself. And as we get more into this, you're going to see that boundaries are really just about knowing who you are, like knowing what you need and what you want, and then just doing that, just honoring it, communicating it, doing it. That's really all it comes down to. Okay. So yeah, I have this as the next point. Super great. I wrote down here that poor boundaries are often a result of being out of touch with yourself. Right. And I can definitely, when I think back to those days of just habitual people pleasing in my relationships, it's because I was consistently more focused on making sure that everyone in my environment was happy and easeful and not tending to my own needs. I wasn't focused on myself, really. Again, in that podcast that's below, you can listen to more of my story around that in particular, because I've always been someone who needs a lot of alone space. And that was really not reflected back to me. I have a super Gemini mother and I'm the oldest of three girls. And of course, it was more about being involved and doing things with people all the time. So I felt very alienated by my need for solitude, which probably just cut me off from that at a young age. And by losing touch with that, which is the space that I contact myself and understand myself is through a lot of solitude, then because I wasn't connected, I wasn't able to communicate my needs and boundaries, my needs and desires. I couldn't say no because I wasn't thinking about myself. I was only thinking about everyone else around me and their needs. Hence, poor boundaries, being out of touch, not knowing. Okay? So this is my favorite one. If you hang out with me in my world long enough and listen to me talk about boundaries, you're going to hear me say this a million times. Okay? Healthy boundaries, yes, are a natural expression of you in complete alignment with yourself. So I was practicing Qigong for several years in my late 20s and early 30s. I had a great teacher, and in one of the classes, he had us kind of like waltzing around the room, and he had us doing all these funny things, and he was like giving teachings at the same time. We were kind of like doing this weird thing. And at one point, he goes, "You think boundaries are something you need to create, but they're not. They're just this expression of you in total alignment with who you are." It could have been something different. This is just my iteration that I have repeated over and over and over again over the past decade, and that's really what I took from it. And I'll never forget the first time, like, when he said this, I was like, I think I was like 30 at the time, or maybe even younger, and I was in that what I described with my students, like, trying to figure out a boundary and it just feeling so awful. And he's like, "You think a boundary is something you have to put up?" And I was like, "Yes, I think a boundary is something I have to put up." And he's like, "But you don't. It's just you being you." And I was like, "What is he talking about?" And then I really I anchored it in and I started working with that. And I thought about my teachers because I've had a lot of incredible pr- practice teachers, yoga teachers, meditation teachers, qigong teachers, somatic teachers, plant medicine teachers, so many amazing teachers, right? And I am a teacher and was a teacher at that time. And I started thinking about how when I walk into their space, that the way they hold themselves, their alignment with their truth, like showed me, I knew how to interact with them. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, think about someone in your life who they're so embodied, like they're just so them that you know how to be around them. Like, you know, someone who maybe needs like a lot of personal space in their life, and you understand that about them. You're like, "Oh, that person, like, yeah, they're like super introverted, they need a lot of space." And you know not to push. You know they're not gonna, like, come to that party with you that starts at midnight or whatever the thing is, you know? You just know it because they are themselves. And then you know the person who's, like, a total social butterfly, who wants to come hang out all the time, and you're like, "Oh my god, that's my friend that I can call all the time and be like, 'Come to this thing with me.'" Or someone that just, like, really loves helping, like, genuinely because it's part of who they are, and you're like, I've got one of these friends, like, "Oh my god, we need something done with the house, like, let's call this person because they love doing this. It feeds them, right?" And it's because they're connected to who they are and they're embodying it, they're being it. And through that information field, without speaking, without them having to tell me, "I really like this thing," or "I don't like this thing," I just can sense. I just know how to interact with them. So this is like foundational. And of course, not everyone is going to be sensitive to to this, right? Some folks are less sensitive to these like subtle energies, or some of them are not so subtle. But either way, so vocal communication of needs and limits, of boundaries, still has to be in play no matter what relationship you're in. But if you can anchor yourself in like, if I like really honor myself and I just get so like, I am this, I know who I am and I be living it, then these boundaries start to express themselves as a symptom of your connection to yourself and not something that you're like, "Oh, I have to blockade all these things in my life." Different. Be who you are and let that inform everything else. Okay? All right, I got one more little bullet point here on boundaries. Yeah, it's just a little extension on what I was just saying. I've got this written down. Healthy boundaries are born out of deep self knowledge and alignment. All the things I just said, right? I know who I am. Like, who the heck are you? What do you really need? What do you love? What do you want? What makes you feel good? What doesn't? Know those things. Start honoring them. Start doing them. And then boundaries are they're just gonna come. Okay? They're just gonna come. This is the whole point, is that they get easy because you know who you are. Gotta bring the senses online. Okay, so I'm gonna just talk a little bit about sensual boundaries, which I essentially already have been. So first I just want to break down this word sensuality. So first and foremost, sensuality refers to our senses. And the point of our senses is like our five senses. It's how we understand the world around us. Okay. Our senses are always working. Think about it. You walk into a new space, you look around, you listen, you smell, you feel, and all of this is happening unconsciously. But it's how your animal being is sensing its environment and also tracking it for safety, right? Make sure there's not like a big lion in the corner that's going to kind of get you. Okay. So this is the essence of what sensuality actually is. And then to bring that into this feeling of our sensual nature and how we like to refer to this word as something that brings us pleasure or joy or fun, something that feels good. So when I'm talking about like sensual boundaries, I'm basically saying like pleasureful boundaries, things that feel good to our senses, even though of course our senses can feel things that are not good as well. But I just want to, yeah, bring that flavor to it. So I want you to start looking at boundaries through this pleasureful lens of what feels good for me. So even just before I was talking about like knowing yourself, knowing your needs, knowing your limits, your desires, all these things, right? And those can be pretty objective. They aren't necessarily all these things make me feel really good. So now, and as we move closer to talking about Rose in particular, it's like, okay, but what if we're looking at what makes us feel really good? Not only basic needs, but how do we like put some salt on it, put some honey on it, and like make the nourishment, the food that we have to eat, more delicious? You pick up what I'm putting down? So I already spoke to this, but I want to just bring it back again. Is like when I'm talking about sensual boundaries or pleasureful boundaries, it's about taking a shift, making a mindset shift from the I'm putting up walls to the things that make me feel bad, right? I'm going to like take that out. Like that's like, I'm going to take that out as far as what I'm referring to when I talk about boundaries. I'm going to shift from that being my definition of boundaries to boundaries are how I honor what feels good for me. Okay. So generally speaking in your life, if you feel bad about something, it's probably because you're focused on the thing that makes you feel bad, which is exactly what I was doing at the beginning of my like boundary awakening with my students. Was like, all of this makes me feel bad, and I'm hyper focused on the fact that it makes me feel bad. And so now trying to figure it out also feels bad. So the shift is like, stop focusing on that and focus on what feels good. What feels good? What do you really value? What do you really love? What makes you feel delicious? What are the things that you want to fill your life with? And then do that. Do the things that make you feel good. Figure out what those things are that like turn you on about life, that make you excited to get out of bed in the morning. Those things, figure out what those things are and then do them. And when you do them, when pleasure and joy and caring for yourself and your own needs is the foundation of your life, the things that you don't want will become, one, way easier to discern and decipher, right? Because as you love yourself more, it's just going to be very clear as to when you're engaging with things that don't make you feel good. And also, it's just like such a soft approach, right? Because I'm like, imagine you're like, Jess, will you come do this thing with me today? And I'm like, no, I have this beautiful day planned for myself. I'm gonna walk in nature alone and resource myself through connecting with my own heart and my plant spirit guides. And I'm gonna bring forward this beautiful new podcast I'm working on. I love working. I love my work. Okay. So if I tell you this, are you gonna be like, oh my God, Jess will come hang out with me today. She's taking care of herself. Maybe. But maybe if that's the case, we shouldn't be friends. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Do you ever wash your hair and the day you wash it, you just like can't stop touching it? I'm not gonna lie, I washed my hair for you today. I knew I was gonna put this camera up and invite you over, so I figured my head should be clean. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the cost of not having clear boundaries, because we got to dive into, yeah, the icky aspect. You already know, right? You already know. So this is going to be like a little mirror thing here for you. But of course, if you don't have good a good understanding of who you are, what you need, and you aren't communicating your boundaries, or even if you do understand who you are and what you need, but you're not honoring that, you're not communicating it to other people, and you're just saying yes to every invitation, you're helping everyone, you're listening to everyone's problems, you are at your family's beck and call, you won't miss anything because you feel guilty, like all the things, right? You're just like, yes, everything you need, making sure everyone else is happy, that I'm just doing that thing. You're going to burn out. You're going to burn out and you're going to resent these people. Like you're going to resent the people you love. And being with them is just going to feel awful. And doing the things is just going to feel awful. And you're going to fry your nervous system. Like you're literally going to burn out, because burnout is not something that happens from doing too much. It's something that happens from doing too much of the wrong thing, doing too much of the thing that doesn't nourish you, that doesn't feed you. So when you're only taking care of everyone else around you and you're not taking care of yourself, this is the worst kind of burnout. Because while you're also in that caretaking, people pleasing, showing up, doing the thing that everybody else wants you to do, not only are you stretching yourself to do those things like in a physical way, but you also have that, I don't want to, on the inside. You also, you know what I'm saying? You have this. And that dissonance causes so much stress on the nervous system. This is like serious fry time. Okay. Number 2, I got 3. I got 3 for you here. So people pleasing, self-sacrificing, and losing sight of your own desires. If you're only ever doing for everyone else around you, you can't possibly be connected to yourself. So I already touched on this, right? And it can come before or after, right? So growing up for me for a long time without any conscious awareness of my behavior, I mean, I was watching it, right? But I didn't understand what was going on. It was like, oh yeah, I'm just doing all these things because I think I have to do all these things for people to make sure that everyone loves me and nobody doesn't like me. And if everybody's happy, then I'll be fine too, right? This kind of thing. I'm not connected to my desires. I'm not connected to who I am, to my needs. I'm literally sacrificing my own life, my own soul for all these people. So it can start like that. But then even if I know, right? Like say I know what I need. I know what makes me happy. I know what I want, but I'm not doing it. You're sacrificing your life. Your life. And for what? Like, really, for what? You know, we can go deep into this as to like why, like explore why. You're scared someone's not gonna like you. You're scared that it means you are not lovable. Like, I really beg you to challenge those beliefs and ask yourself that if that is actually true in any of these relationships that you're acting like this in, if you want to be in them. And also explore the reality that maybe that's not true at all. And you could just do what you needed, and the people who love you would still love you, right? Like, who made that belief system in you? Okay, so explore that. But that's rough. You're gonna sacrifice your whole life? That's expensive. That's a big cost, right? Okay, last one here. Blurred emotions and a blurred sense of self, which I talked about earlier also, like not knowing where you end and where another person begins, and which is transference. And transference is inevitable in life when we talk with people, when we do work, in our relationships, in all of our relationships. You can think of it really neutral, and as we're gonna pop into Rose after this, but like there's a transference that happens when you go into nature, right? You exchange energy with like the trees, and it's an awesome transference. Like there's good transference. And then there's also the transference of like when you're going over to that friend's house who's just always endlessly complaining about her partner, and you know and she knows she shouldn't be in the relationship, but she can't get out of it. And every time you go over, it's the only thing she talks about. Or it's the same thing with her job. It's just like so draining, and you're like, ugh, and you're picking this stuff up and you're taking it on. And then when you leave, you feel bad. Okay. You don't have clear boundaries. You don't understand that that's not something that you want to participate in. You can't communicate that. Then you are just going to be feeling shitty all the time. And it's not even yours. That stuff isn't, you're letting people emotionally dump on you. You're taking it on. You don't understand that, like, oh, I don't need to be doing this. Actually, this is really not good for me. And you're not looking for new ways to interact in this relationship. You're not ways, you can find ways of saying like, hey, I really love you. And this is what I have the space for. You can hold space for someone and have it be less than what you have been doing. So if you don't have those boundaries, then yeah, you're just going to get like rained on by all the stuff that you don't want all the time. And that's a lot. It's a lot to carry. It's hard to then live your own life well when you're living your life just carrying the baggage of everybody else. And especially if you don't have like good ways to get rid of it. Shit, girl. It was rough. Okay. You're talking about Rose. Okay. So we are diving in with Rose now as our ally. When we are working with plants as allies, as teachers, the first thing that we do is we observe the plant in its physical form. We kind of read the book by its cover, which we do anyway, right? We do this with everybody. Everyone who walks into the room, we kind of like, we see them and we make judgments about them. Sometimes they're right. Sometimes they're super right. Sometimes they're wrong, but I digress. When we work with plants, we look at their character first from a physical nature. So, okay, what's the first thing? Close your eyes for a moment, okay? Sit back, close your eyes, take a breath, and just observe Rose. Observe this plant. What is the first thing that you notice? Maybe it's the flower of the rose bush. These delicious, delicate, beautiful petals, rich in color, silky soft, smooth. Maybe the first thing you notice is how many more thorns there are on that bush than beautiful flowers. Or maybe that's a secondary awareness that these roots, these branches are covered in these little thorns. And then there's these dark, pretty strong looking green leaves that if you were far enough away from a rose plant, you wouldn't really notice the thorns until you got a little bit closer. Also notice the shape and the sturdiness of the plant. Like if a huge wind were to brush through the landscape where this rose bush was, would it take it down or is it resilient? What would happen? And then since we're in this meditative space and you're observing this rose, ask yourself or notice what kind of feeling comes to you if you were to imagine being that plant. What's the attitude? What's the energy? What's the essence of the entire plant? Not just the flower, but the whole rose bush. What does that feel like for you if you were that plant? Okay, so you can hang out there and keep listening to me. You can open your eyes and come back. Yeah, so like I said, when we first work with a plant, it's like we go, what can I learn from this energy? What can I learn from the embodiment? Each of us as humans, we all have different spirits and souls and shapes and colors. And we can learn from each other's experience based on, yeah, our experiences. Like you can learn from me based on my life, and I can learn from you based on your life. And so if we were hanging out for real, I would ask you, and you might tell me something like, oh, the flower is so beautiful. There's sensuality, there's sweetness, there's softness, there's pleasure, there's beauty, there's grace. You would see all this maybe in the rose itself. It's loving. Rose is a symbol for love and care. You would feel that. You might reflect that to me. And then you might also reflect the very obvious thorn, right? Something I think about a lot is like if I want to pick a rose flower, I have to be very careful about how you can't just like a daisy, you could just pull it right out of the ground, right? You have to go in very strategically with a pair of scissors, something sharp to actually cut it. You have to notice how you place your finger on the stem to be able to pick it up, to be able to receive the beauty. You have to be careful. The thorn is also the symbol of protection, right? It's almost like I always feel like the flower gets to be this luscious and beautiful because it's like almost untouchable. It's only touchable to the person who knows how to touch it. And so first, I'm just going to go back to like the rose as this like teacher of the flower of sensuality. If I just, when I started working with rose and the rose baths, it was just like, oh my God, I just feel so good. I feel so silky. I had this big womb connection open up, a vocal connection, this very luxurious. Yeah, I mean, you can even see like the way that I'm moving right now, like the relationship of this energy that started opening me. I was like, oh my God, like I deserve to feel so good. I deserve to be delicious. I deserve to feel beautiful. Like all of these things started to come forward. I want to you can see like I'm talking to you differently because I'm reminiscing on this early connection that I had with the rose petals themselves, like within the baths that I was doing. And then as I was spending time, it was like the thorn is there as like this protection, this boundary. And there's almost this invitation, or what happened for me was this like, look how beautiful your life gets to be, how well nourished you get to be when you're protected, when you have the appropriate boundaries set around you. Look at how wonderful things get to become. And so when I was talking earlier about like when you focus what's good and you let that grow in your life, it will inform everything else, right? And you're here because you want your life to feel delicious. You're tired of it feeling not that. You're tired of being burnt out. You're tired of people pleasing. You're tired of not taking care of yourself in the right way. You're tired of of not like really honoring this amazing woman that you are. Like that's why I invited you over. So you could come back to that, right? And remember that really Rose can teach us that one of the only ways, if not the only way, to really, really honor that delicious beauty in yourself and your dreams and your luscious desires and having a life that feels really good and wonderful is by having the proper protection, is by having the proper boundaries, and to only allowing the people into your world that know the right way to treat you, who know how to come in. Okay? This is huge. And then something else I just wanted to say here, because I am so tired of women apologizing for existing. Okay? We say sorry when we're walking by someone in the supermarket. This is totally insane. Okay, so we're not apologizing for anything anymore. And when we set boundaries or when we just communicate, I'm not available for that, you don't apologize for this thing, right? The rose plant is not like, oh, sorry that I have thorns. Sorry you can't just come in here and grab me. No, there's no sorry. This is who I am. This is what I need. And you don't apologize for who you are. You don't apologize for what you need. So if you take one thing from this whole sesh, and it's just like, I'm going to stop apologizing for the things that I want and need in my life, even that would just, oh my God, do wonders for you. All right, girlfriend. Last thing I'm going to touch on here is just how to move forward. How to move forward from this conversation. What are some really good next steps that you can do right now to both start working with Rose as a boundary teacher and honoring yourself, honoring this journey that you're feeling called to in this moment in time. And I am a plant ritual student and teacher, and the ways that you are going to receive your particular direct teachings with a plant is to go really deep into her world. So in my 3-month plant program, I teach all about becoming a student of a plant and ritual. Rose is the second flower that we work with. We work with lavender, rose, and blue lotus in that 3-month program, and I run that once a year. But we super deep dive. I call it an initiation because it is. If you go through those 3 months of working with these plants and all of the themes that we address in there, you will come out on the other side with some super strong allies, some teachers, some friends, these plants to help you navigate some awesome, pretty much everything you need in your life, which is just your intuition, knowing and trusting yourself, your boundaries, having strong container around yourself so you can live your juiciest life, but also your most honest one. And then Lotus is, we go deep into shadows, but you can learn more about that on my website, but you don't have to wait for that program to run again to start working with Rose and to start working with plants right now, start working on your boundaries right now. So the easiest thing you can do is to just start a very gentle tea practice where you sit and drink some rose tea every single day in a quiet space. And you just start to listen. You listen to the energy of the plant, you listen to the frequency, you listen to how your body feels, you notice what's happening in your life as this unfolds. In my membership, which is only $33, there's another workshop in there that gives you an actual like step by step how to build the plant ritual with some really awesome somatic tools and mudras and fun stuff in there. So you can go in to support you starting your tea plant ritual today, right now. And you can also just work intuitively on your own. I do think it's always more helpful to have a teacher than, so you're not guessing, right? It's good to take the guessing out of work that is intangible, and this work is intangible. I am also, depending on when you're watching this, going to be holding a 2 months of boundary work coming this fall in 2026, which will likely happen again. So even if you're watching this afterwards, it'll come back around. But we'll be working with Rose in that container as well. We just, as women, we need a lot of time with this stuff. We need a lot of practice, and we need a lot of support from other women. There's nothing better than being in a container, women just like freaking cheerleading each other on. Okay. So there's lots of different ways that you can keep engaging with me. I'm below this. I'm going to drop the membership in case you want to go in and get that other workshop on ritual, how to start your plant ritual today with Rose. There's also a bunch of other plant allies in there with the when to work with them that you can explore as well. Just kind of fun. I'm also going to drop the podcast that I have, and there's actually several episodes on there that talk about boundaries. And the one in particular that I was referencing earlier, I'll like put a little special star on that so you can go and learn about my journey with people pleasing all the way up to me teaching you about not doing that. But if none of these things are even like, you're just like, okay, I want to digest this information a little bit right now, just ask yourself every single morning and several times throughout the day, like, what do I want and what do I need? What do I want and what do I need? What do I want and what do I need? And how can I give myself that? And just focus on that. Just focus on what you want, focus on what you need. Start doing that. You can start doing that literally the second this ends. And if you do it consistently over time, I promise you, you will see your life change. Okay? So that's it. I'm going to give you the boot, kick you out of the house now. Thanks for coming over. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you have any questions, please comment below. Questions, insights, literally anything. I respond to everything, and I love to hear your reflections, no matter what they are. Yeah, it brings me life. So go do something delicious for yourself. Go do something that you want that makes you feel good. Say no to someone today, just for fun, just to lighten it up a little bit. All right. Yeah, we'll talk soon. And thank you so much for spending some time with me today and let me share some of this beautiful medicine with you. I hope that you receive some good nourishment from it, and yeah, that it supports you in your life. We'll hang out more soon.